actually going to look at chapter 11, problem number 1. And I'm going to work it through with you guys, so feel free to watch the video to make sure that you're comfortable with the problem. But you're going to want to open up chapter 11 data set 2, so you may want to pause here for a minute and open that up. Once you have the data set open, the problem is looking at do boys raise their hand in class more often than girls? Notice how it says more often. So our statement here is that boys raise their hands more often than girls. So I'm taking my question and I'm rewording it as a statement. Notice though, I'm not trying to find that there's a difference. I'm actually trying to prove that boys raise their hand more often than girls. So we're not doing a two-sided test, we're doing a one-tailed test. And I wanted to walk you through how to look that up once we get there. So the plan step is going to be that they're equal. So our null is that the average of the boys equals the average of the girls. But in all honesty, I want to determine if boys actually raise their hand more often than girls, so that the mean of the hand raises of boys is greater than the mean of the hand raises of girls. So most of this can be done in SPSS. At the very end, we'll have to use our table V2 to actually look up our critical value and run a comparison to see if there actually is a difference and that boys are actually greater than girls. So when you run it in SPSS, it'll give you the two-tailed results telling you if there's a difference, but it will also give us our t-value, which we can then use in comparison of our critical value. So I'm going to our data set here, and we're going to analyze, compare mean, and we're going to do the independent samples of the t-test. So again, our variable is how often they raise their hand. And then our grouping variable is going to be our gender, because our gender is going to define either the boys or the girls. So in this case, and I didn't look, I'm assuming the boys are 1 and the girls are 2. And again, remember we have to define our groups. Group 1 is with the 1, group 2 is with the 2. Again, I'm not sure why they make us do that, but we have to define our groups. Then we're going to click OK. So notice the mean of our boys group is 7.93 and the mean of our girls group is 5.31. Okay, so we obviously have a difference in our means there, but let's look and see what we got as our p-value. Okay, so our p-value, if we are running a two-tailed test, is 0.006. Okay, we actually want to run that comparison on a one-tailed test, that we want to make sure that the mean of the boys is greater than the mean of the girls. Obviously, we have found that there is a difference. So what is that difference? So to do that, we want to look at our t-value, which is 3.006, and I'm just going to write that over here under my solve step. So we found a t equals 3.006, and we got a p-value, or our degrees of freedom. Let me flip back here. Those are the two values you will need. Our degrees of freedom is a 28. Okay, so those are the two values we need in order to run a one-tailed test. So our degrees of freedom is 28. Now, to calculate this and to figure out if it actually is, we need to determine what our critical value is for this data set. So to do so, you need to go to the back of your book. It's table B2 and it starts on page 371. And when you look at that, there's a one-tailed test section and a two-tailed test section. We are going to use the one-tailed because we are looking at greater than. And we are going to use our 0.05 significance because we want it to be significant at the 5% level. So what you need to do is, on the left-hand side, there's a degrees of freedom column. You need to go to the second page, which is on 372, and find the degrees of freedom equals 28. When you find that, you need to go over in that row until you get under the 0.05, which is in the one-tailed test. Okay, so find the degrees of freedom is 28. Go across that row to 0.05 under the one-tailed test section. You should get a critical value of 1.701. Okay. So if your obtained value or your t-value, and I'm just going to write that in for your information, if your t-value is greater than your critical value, so I'm going to write that t-value greater than critical value, which in our case it is, our t-value of 3.006 is greater than the 1.701. So I'm going to write that in as 3.006, running out of room here, greater than 1.701, then we can reject our null. In conclusion, we can reject the null and accept the alternative that boys raise, on average, boys raise their hands more than girls. Okay. If you were looking at, well, this is an if situation, so we're done with that problem. We did find out that boys definitely raise their hand more than girls, or at least we're 95% confident that they do. An alternative would be if our t-value was less than our critical value, then you would fail to reject the null and can draw no conclusions. So that's just an alternative, so if you want to put that in your notes as well, looking at our t-value and our critical values.